Recording in progress.
We'd like to welcome you to this meeting of the Provo Municipal Council. It's great to see so many people here. We haven't seen this in a very, very long time. Today is Tuesday, October 26th, 2021. The time is 5:30 p.m. Meetings of the Municipal Council are now being held in hybrid fashion. Members of the public may continue to view council meetings on YouTube and Facebook, or they may attend in person in the council chamber at the Provo City Center. Elected officials, staff, and any presenters are participating in the council chamber or by using Zoom webinar. The coronavirus pandemic is not yet over, but vaccines are available. We encourage everyone who's eligible to get vaccinated. We encourage all people to protect themselves and others by following the protocols set by the CDC and our state and local health departments. Please stay safe and be kind. This meeting is being broadcast live on the web on the Provo City Council YouTube channel, where it will also be available for on-demand viewing. I remind participants to mute your microphone when not speaking to minimize the potential for background noises and conversations to be picked up, recorded, and broadcast for all to hear. We have here present in the council chambers 5 counselors. One is participating remotely, and I believe the second will be joining us shortly. We're also pleased to have Mayor Kafusi here and other members of the administration and members of council staff. The opening prayer tonight will be offered by Savannah Fillerup.
Dear Heavenly Father, I'm so very grateful for this opportunity that we have to gather together. God. Thanks for the city. We ask you to please guide us by thy Spirit to make the best decisions for all of the people and for the purpose. We ask you to please help us to empathize with one another and to understand so we can best serve, that we will be able to have charities, and please bless that we will be able to truly strive to be Christ.
Amen. Thank you. The Pledge of Allegiance tonight will be led by Maury Dobbs.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Our first item of business tonight is a presentation to recognize Brooklyn Martinsen on her award-winning essay for the ULCT's Why I Like My Community Essay Contest. And this is to be presented by Mayor Kafusi.
Good evening, Council Chair Sewell and councilors. I appreciate the opportunity to come and talk about one of my favorite things in the whole wide world is school children. It's where I've come up through in the political world, and public schools and children are near and dear to my heart. So I am really honored to recognize our own little student from Provo Elementary. Do you want to come stand up here? This is Brooklyn, and I'm just going to read a little bit about her. Each year, the Utah League of Cities and Towns holds an essay contest for fourth graders. The topic is Why I Like My Community. And we are very proud that one of the winners this year was our Provo's own Brooklyn Martinsen. Brooklyn attends Provo Elementary and shared how much she loves 3 things: the people of Provo, the mountains of Provo, and the Freedom Festival we have in Provo. And this is a girl after my own heart, because those are 3 of my favorite things too about Provo. Her essay included a glimpse into her world and personality. For example, she mentioned her hesitation to join other kids at the microphone to tell jokes at the Freedom Festival parade. And every person on the planet can relate to that. Whenever there's a gap at the Freedom Festival, the different little stations will ask kids if they want to run up and tell a joke to kind of fill the gap while the band is catching up, and the kids are brave. I probably would never dare do that when I was a kid. But I just want to say thank you, Brooklyn, for giving us a view of Provo through your eyes, and what you shared was simply beautiful. So I have a little bit of a video of clip of Brooklyn that we filmed with the league. I just wanted to show for a few minutes. It's just quick.
Hi, my name is Brooklyn Martinsen and I live in Provo, Utah. I would just describe it as just a fun, caring city where you can just get to know people, and it's really beautiful, and yeah, there's just a lot of fun things to do. I've heard people who move to Provo say that they aren't used to people being so friendly, and they just love how people look out for them. People just welcome each other and you can depend on them. You can go up to Provo Canyon, and there's so many beautiful hikes that you can go on. There's also a lot of waterfalls in the winter. The waterfalls are frozen, so it kind of gives you the impression that you're in the ice age if it's snowing. In July, when we have the 4th of July parade, it's huge. Like, there's balloons and they're humongous. They also let the high school bands play, and it's really fun to think that one day you could be in a gigantic parade with whatever instrument you play. If something goes wrong with the parade, then they tell jokes, and they even let kids come up and tell some, which is really fun. I personally didn't come up because I was too much of a chicken. At Christmas, they light up the trees lining the center street, and it looks really, really cool. They have Christmas lights on their house shining at the Christmas season. As you can see, Provo is a really fun, caring, beautiful, and festive city. Those are some reasons why I love my city/community, Provo.
So great. So Brooklyn, we put together just a little gift bag. I know that your school received a check from the league, correct? Yeah. And so congratulations on being a winner, and thank you for jumping in and participating. Would the council like to say anything? Come on up, Brooklyn. You can pretend like your meeting's really stressful. You stand right here and you talk into that microphone.
Well, I'd just like to say thank you and congratulations. Appreciate your love for the community and your participation in this essay contest. Mr. Harding?
I loved reading your essay, and we share a lot of the same loves for Provo, and I think it's great to see, as the mayor said, you know, the city through other eyes, because I think a lot of people across the community love Provo, and for various reasons. So it was really fun to read your reasons, and just great work.
Thank you.
Mayor, councilors, I think Karen's waiting to take a picture of all you with
Another part
Brooklyn.
of the job that's not my favorite, but come on up and we'll grab a photo.
You'll live.
We'll, we want to move this stuff or not mess with it.
Move in front of it if you read.
Yes.
Yes. Flips a professional and moving around.
It has shorts in it, so I always worry about moving it.
Don't step on the wires.
We're good, thank you.
Item number 2 tonight is the Provo Parks and Recreation receiving the Gold Medal Award from the American Academy for Parks and Recreation Administration. And this item is to be presented by Rod Tarullo, who is the Director of Golden Colorado Parks, Recreation, and Golf Gold Medal Judges Liaison of the AAPRA. Welcome.
Good evening, council, mayor, city staff, citizens of Provo. It's a pleasure to be with you this evening in this capacity. I'm here tonight representing 3 different organizations that collectively administer the National Gold Medal Award Program for excellence in the field of Parks and Recreation Management. These 3 groups are the American Academy, which you just mentioned, and that's commonly referred to as the Academy, the National Recreation and Parks Association, which is also known as NRPA, and then sponsorship from Musco Lighting. The Academy, which is the governing organization for this Gold Medal Award, consists of 125 distinguished practitioners and scholars who are committed to the advancement of the parks and recreation field. Rooted in the desire to advance knowledge, encourage scholarly efforts, and provide services to advance the profession, the Academy embraces the opportunities to raise the bar and enhance the quality of parks and recreation services to local communities through this National Gold Medal Award program. Now, you need to understand that the National Gold Medal Award is the most coveted award in the parks and recreation field. There is not anything higher you can look towards than this specific award. This is our version of winning the Oscar in the film industry. And in fact, the actual plaque that you have maybe seen here is produced by the very same people that make the Oscar statues. They come from the same place. And I encourage you, if given the opportunity to physically hold this grand plaque, please take advantage of that. You might be surprised by the weight and how significant and unique it really is. Now, this award recognizes and honors agencies and communities throughout the United States that exceed industry standards and establish highest levels for delivering public park and recreation services. Park and recreation agencies submit applications annually that contain specific data about their organization and answering key questions that communicate information to a panel of 5 judges. These judges are made up of practitioners from the field. The judges independently judge and score the questions. The scores are tabulated and 4 finalists are identified for an armed forces category, 5 different population categories, and state park agencies every other year. The finalists are determined by those scores, and they're asked to provide a 5-minute video that tells the agency's story and helps the judges visually see the efforts of the finalists. The judges then meet together each June to view the videos, discuss the merits of each agency, and determine the grand plaque winner for each class. Gold medal finalists measure the impact and benefit of their services while addressing their community's needs through the involvement of citizens, staff, and elected officials in their planning processes. Now, the judges don't look for the agencies that just have the most resources. They actually look for the agencies that do the very best with the resources that they have. Provo Parks and Recreation has demonstrated efforts addressing conservation, equity, and health and wellness. They also have created an innovative culture that has become a habit for the department. I can tell you that the judges were especially impressed with Provo's efficiency of operations, CAPRA accreditation, citizen and elected official support, and a unified team of professional staff at all levels of the organization. We applaud and congratulate Provo City and Provo Parks and Recreation for this outstanding accomplishment. Provo Parks and Recreation truly represents the best of the best. In 2020, your Parks and Recreation Department accomplished and received CAPRA accreditation. becoming one of no more than 200 agencies in the country to achieve this status. By winning the gold medal, Class 3 Grand Plaque, you are one of only 56 agencies to claim this specific award since the gold medal program started in 1965. So please keep in mind that there are approximately 10,000 parks and recreation agencies in the United States. These two distinctions, CAPRA accreditation and the gold medal, clearly make Provo Parks and Recreation one of the best, if not the best agency in the country. You've been recognized by experts in the field to have demonstrated significant success with the design and delivery of superior services and facilities to your community. The Grand Plaque Award was announced and given to Provo Parks and Recreation representatives at the opening general virtual session of the annual NRPA conference on September 20th, 2021 in Nashville, Tennessee. I'm delighted tonight to be a part of this local acknowledgement of this prestigious national award. On behalf of the American Academy for Parks and Recreation Administration, Musco Lighting, and the National Recreation and Parks Association, we congratulate Provo City and Provo Parks and Recreation on your success. I'd now like to turn time over to Director Henderson.
Thank you, Rod, and thank the Academy for this recognition. The first presentation, Brooklyn has now been hired by the Parks and Recreation Department as a spokesperson, so she is on staff right now. Since early on in a lot of our careers, we have known about the Gold Medal Award in our area, but there were times both in my career and working for other agencies, I could not fathom working for an organization or a department or in a community where the gold medal would even be a possibility. But when you look at Provo City as an organization and the support we have received from the council over the years and from our mayor's office, that's what makes this happen. This is a team together. Our department is a talented team and is somebody that challenges and is pushing for new ideas and new thresholds to conquer every single day. And we live in the greatest community of the United States. We don't need a gold medal for that. We have a community that is committed to quality of life, and their use and their commitment to quality of life in their town is absolutely amazing. And we feel that support every single day. I stand here as one of 800 staff members of a great team that is recognized as the best in the nation. And I am so proud of my coworkers. Now, with every event, program, or accomplishment that Provo City has, it seems like Parks and Recreation always memorializes that with a t-shirt. So we have a t-shirt for the entire council and the mayor's office with the inspirational message of go for the gold. We realize our department is not perfect. We can do better, and we will continue to do better every single day. So go for the gold will be a standard every single time that we are talking about a decision with the council or with the mayor's office or amongst staff. We will talk about, does this reach the gold medal standard? And that will be the bar which we set from now on. And we will keep our aspirations high because we think Provo citizens deserve the best, and we will never fall off that commitment. So if we could, with the mayor's office and council, our well-dressed department management team is here today, and we'd love to have a picture with Rod, the mayor, and the council if we could. Thanks.
I understand that there's another presentation that inadvertently got left off the program tonight. I'd like to turn it over to Vice Chair Shipley to introduce that.
Thank you, Chair Sewell. So it's noted that we have some of our inaugural class with the new medical school here in Provo, Utah. And we'd like to welcome them. We're honored to have them here, and I'm really excited for Provo City to have such a wonderful program in school. So we'll invite representatives from the school up to introduce their new class officers of their inaugural class at the medical school.
Thank you very much. I'm Norm Wright. I'm the interim president of the Noorda College of Osteopathic Medicine, and I love Provo. I mean, what a wonderful day, and congratulations to Parks and Rec for this wonderful award that they received. Another great addition to the city of Provo, a medical school. Who would have thought, for those of us who grew up in this area? So I want to introduce the officers or allow them to introduce themselves quickly. You'll see the great hands that this city and state are going to be in a few years from now as these wonderful students become doctors. Now, I will admit that there is one, maybe more than one, who thinks they're going to go home and practice medicine at home. Our job is to show them how great Provo is so that they never want to leave. So with that, President Brittany, you want to start off, please?
Hi, thank you all for allowing us to be here. My name is Brittany Harrell. I am from Fountain, North Carolina, where I completed a bachelor's in biology and then followed by a master's in public health. I am the president of SGA here, and I'm just super excited to be at this medical school, and I'm loving Provo so far. So thank you all.
Hi, I'm Maria de los Santos. I am originally from Venezuela, lived in Houston most of my life. I studied at the University of Houston. I studied finance and entrepreneurship. Then I became an attorney. I studied at South Texas College of Law. And then after 10 years, I did a career change. So here I am. Would love to stay in Provo, so loving it so far. And I'm the treasurer for the Student Government Association.
Hi, my name is Cassandra Bovey. I'm from Reno, Nevada. I'm the vice president of the Student Government Association, and I got my undergraduate degree at Utah State, so I had to come back, and I really love Utah, so it's been cool to be in Provo.
Hi, my name's Nate Hill. I'm from Layton, Utah, so Utah boy. I went to my undergrad here at BYU, and I'm the secretary of the SGA here at Noorda.
Medical care is in good hands. And I will indicate that we have with us Dr. John Doherty, who is the brain trust behind the Noorda College of Osteopathic Medicine. And he's really created a unique educational model that's gaining nationwide attention in our first semester due to the scores that the students are earning. So congratulations to Dr. Doherty and the rest of the team at NoordaCom. Thank you very much for your time. We're glad to be here in Provo.
Thank you. It's now time for the public comment portion of our meeting. Mr. Strachan, would you like to explain that?
I would. Normally, I would tell you the guidelines for dealing with public hearings, but we don't have any public hearing items tonight. We do have one item for public comment, and we have a public comment period. At this time, 15 minutes has been set aside for an open public comment period, which is intended to allow comment on matters that do not appear on the agenda. Persons who speak during this time to an item that is on the agenda will not normally be afforded a second opportunity to speak during the comment period specific to that item. During any public comment period, each speaker will generally be limited to 2 minutes. Due to noticing requirements, no formal action will be taken in this meeting on matters that do not appear on the agenda. Those with comments are invited to approach the podium. Those participating on Zoom will need to use the raise hand feature to indicate that they wish to comment. Please begin your comments by stating your name and city of residence, and you will have 2 minutes to speak. The public comment period starts now.
I'm Paul Ruffner and I live in Provo. I'm here to say that I oppose the efforts of the City Council to charge for parking in the Joaquin neighborhood. I've talked to many of you in person, but I wanted to express my opposition in a public meeting. After more than 3 years of meetings by your parking committee and being pushed by the current neighborhood chair and 2 city council members, you're about to vote on a new parking ordinance. The committee has met and pushed this along with very little input from the major property owners, businesses, and tenants in North Joaquin. In fact, they eliminated people from their committee who were opposed from the start. Your latest survey has been available for 2 weeks and has 643 total replies. It shows 21 really support votes to charge for parking. After 3 years of meetings and a constant push by the neighborhood chair, there are 21 yes votes. That's 3.3% of the total votes. In contrast, there are 516 votes. This is as of this afternoon. 516 votes under the don't support at all. That's 80% of the against paid parking. Last summer, you set out the first survey. 80% of those who responded said they disagreed or strongly disagreed with the plan to have paid parking on the streets in the Joaquin neighborhood. Now you have 2 surveys with overwhelming opposition to the plan. We all know that the people most affected will be the young university student residents in our city. In an area of the city with almost no crime, the worst thing you can say about these young people is that they park their cars on the street. Please stop this attack on our young college student population. The consequences will be to encourage them to move elsewhere. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Brady Ducher. I live in Provo. I work with a company, Manhattan Development. A couple of years ago, we came before the council. I just want to give you an update on a project that we just wrapped in on 1320 South in Provo, the Slate Creek condominiums down there. As you remember, we asked for a zone change to a zone that was already in your books for a project that was never built, but we called it the affordable housing zone. The main things that were a problem were it had 2 spaces per unit. And you wanted us to be 60% owner occupied. And so we made a development agreement. FHA required 50%. You had us do 60%. The final stats of this project right now are we are 80% owner occupied. 100% of this project at 64 units are young couples. In fact, I would say the average with rentals in there and the owner occupied is probably the average age is 24. We have 10 singles with 1 car and many couples with 1 car. So we have a sea of parking, even with the 2 spots. We have kids with FHA loans, conventional loans, and investors who paid cash. 2 quick stories and I'll sit down. We had a kid who could barely qualify for the unit when he decided he wanted to buy it. It took us 8 months to build it. And then he held on to it for 8 months. And then he got his job transferred him to another state. So he called me and said, what should I sell this condo for? And I gave him some ideas. I helped him with a price. About a month and a half later, he called me crying. I'm not going to get emotional about it, but he called me crying saying he sold it and made $50,000 on his condo. He now has money for school, housing, and he just had a kid. There was another couple who were literally living on the street 2 years ago. They cleaned up, they got married, and they bought one of these with an FHA loan. We made him the HOA manager. He came to our office a couple months ago to thank us for it in tears, saying they finally have a place. They have no furniture, but he lives in his own condo that he owns. So I want to thank you guys for allowing our zoning and our project to go through.
Thank you for that report.
Mr. Chair, you have a Luke Sanchez is online. His hand up.
If I may intercede real quickly, just a reminder to those present that applause is not permitted by the public comment rules in between comments. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Rishabh Sharma. I live at Brittany Apartments, which is on 520 North 200 East Provo, and I'm studying at BYU. I would like to take this time to first express that I appreciate all the efforts that this committee is taking to make Provo a more comfortable living place. However, I would also like to shed some light on the fact that an average student earns about $12 an hour, and the average rent at the South Campus is $400 per month. Many students eat a single sandwich for lunch and cereal for dinner because those are the cheapest options. Students are already under a ton of financial stress. The city would make things worse for an average student if they decide to make the street parking paid. Furthermore, even if the street parking is made paid, it won't decrease the demand. Students would still drive when they need to and park their cars. Some apartment complexes don't charge for parking, so some people will never take out their cars and some will always be under this financial burden. Seems like it will become more of a mess than a solution. Therefore, street parking should be kept free of cost. Thank you.
Thank you.
I would like to reiterate what the last gentleman has said. I also am a student at BYU, and I feel like by implementing this solution, we would in fact just, I guess, move the problem to somewhere else. The kids are going to have to park somewhere, and being a college student myself, I'm aware that I'm not going to pay for it. So I will go park and clog up another neighborhood. And I think that that's generally how it's going to work. I know that a lot of people have talked about implementing things that allow landlords to park on the street as well, even with this part or this paid parking permit. And I don't think that that's a feasible solution because, as we've discovered, as the survey was clear, nobody really supports this, and the landlords themselves aren't really here. It's all the students. And so that doesn't seem like a fair solution to all the students. I mean, if we're willing to offer that to any tenants living in apartments, that might be something considering, but that's going to provide or just cause a lot more hassle for you guys to try and keep track of that on a month or I guess semester to semester basis. And I don't know that you guys want to have that on your plate. So I would just like to once more reiterate that this is not something that's supporting the citizens here in Provo, which are predominantly young and poor. Thank you.
Sir, could you state your name for the record, please?
Richard Robertson.
Thank you. We're going to pause just a second to take a comment online, then we'll come back to you. We have a hand raised by Luke Sanchez. Go ahead and make your comment.
Hi, I'm actually Rebecca Gorto. I'm over here with Luke Sanchez, but I am a resident here in Provo, and I'm also a BYU student. And I would also like to share my thoughts on the on-street parking. After talking to several of my peers and sending out the survey that the City Council sent out, many people I know and all of the people I talk to are in disagreement. And I simply wanted to state that we will be passing around a petition because I know that it is hard sometimes to be able to talk to City Council members. And we just want to be able to have our points collectively seen and shared so that you can see that there are more people tangibly that are not in agreement with this proposal. So I just wanted to say that, and just to reiterate that this will not help students at all. We are already under financial burdens. We have tuition fees, we have housing fees, and we don't need another fee, another financial burden on our back. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Madeline Clark. I am also a student at BYU. I've lived in Provo for a few years and have experienced a lot of the parking struggles that most students do. But the problem is with parking availability, there's a lot of cars and it's about not having enough spaces. But the solution is either providing more parking spaces or reducing the amount of cars. But most of the students I know, pretty much all of them, are not used to using public transport. And so that's a very uncomfortable situation for a student to come into, especially as they're moving away from home, they're getting freedom. Public transport is not their first option. So the cars are going to keep coming, but the parking is going to stay the same. So even if you charge for parking, that's not going to change the fact that students don't have anywhere else to park. So it will result in just students paying for parking. And for me, when I heard this, it seemed like, well, they know that that's where we live. They know that we have to park. There's no other place to park. So that seems like a direct exploitation of students living there, just a way to make money off of students for the city, which is kind of sad because I've really enjoyed my whole experience in Provo and I've really loved living here. And it's a very tender place in my heart, but living here, I want to feel like it's continuing to benefit me rather than just keep taking from me. And I don't have parents who pay for my school. I paid for all my school, and I'm going to medical school and I don't want to have more student debt. And this whole problem will just create more frustrations on top of dating, extracurriculars, school research, church responsibilities that we have. And I just feel like for me and everyone I've talked to and everyone I've shared this with, all feel very, very similarly that this is not something that will help the problem. It just will add something else for the students to worry and stress about. And we're the ones that are going to be the most impacted by this change. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Mari Dobbs. I am a resident of Provo for about 2 years, and I recognize that parking is a problem, but I don't believe the students should be the ones to handle that financial burden. I think the problem stems from apartment complexes not having the parking capacity to house as many residents. And so some, like mine, will oversell their parking permits, counting on the fact that multiple of their residents will park on the street. Now, I believe that I should not have to pay for parking on a daily basis in the place where I live. But I recognize there's an issue. I think a potential solution would be to allow permits for residents and potentially charge visitors to the area or create more infrastructure, such as permanent parking garages for students to house their vehicles, because I am an out-of-state student. My family lives in California, and so I need to have a car, but I also don't commute to work or to school, and so I'd be willing to park it, such as a couple miles away from my place. Lastly, I believe that it is in the best interest of the property owners in this neighborhood, because as of August 2022, BYU students will no longer be required to live in contracted housing, and thus there will be, if even street parking they have to pay for, I think they'll be strongly incentivized to move elsewhere. And the property owners will lose out on money and on potential residents. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, so I'm Benjamin Muir. I'm also a student at BYU right now. I too am here to oppose this paid parking permit in Provo, parking on the street. In addition to all the concerns that have been raised so far, I think that the sad thing about this proposal is that a lot of students don't know about it, right? And as a student, I just found out about it today. Luckily, I had space in my schedule to come voice my opinion, and I think that is just another example of students that, being the subject of a short-term fix. They're obviously the victims under this proposal. This is in my mind, it doesn't look like something that's going to long-term fix the problem. It's a very temporary fix, and like has been said before, this is going to be a problem that's going to leak over into other areas, other parts of the city. Additionally, as a student that is financially independent and working on, paying for school and also for the living expenses, this is not something that I can necessarily just immediately, work into, my financial plans, right? Is this paid parking? I have a car, I need a car for my work, And would be an additional expense that would have no benefit to me, right? I have to park in the street routinely, and I even live in an apartment complex that offers parking. So not that necessarily this is anything new, but I would just like to reiterate that I am opposed to this parking proposal. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Allie Critchfield. I am also a resident south of campus. I also attend BYU, and I also oppose this proposal to make parking paid south of campus. There's a lot of reasons that have been stated, and I don't want to reiterate them further because I think that they are sufficient. But as a student, in my complex, I pay for a parking pass. I think that making street parking will incentivize more people to buy a parking pass, and then our complex will be full, and then I'll have to pay for my parking pass and pay to park on the street, which isn't conducive to my budget nor to my time and how I'd like to spend it. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Scott Sawaya. I also live here in Provo and I go to BYU. I wanted to come here to speak on behalf of a group of students that can't normally be here in Provo. I volunteer for an organization that's partnered with BYU at an effort to bring more first generation students, especially from underrepresented minorities, to the university. And what we found in recent years is that these students are not as successful as we would like them to be after graduating, because they don't get as many experiential learning opportunities as we would like them to through internships and clubs and office hours with their professors. So we're really trying to make that as accessible as possible to students, which necessitates transportation that is as affordable and accessible as possible, not only so that these students can experience learning opportunities outside of the classroom, engaging with local businesses and participating in the community, but also be able to work and afford the education that they come here to receive. And so I just wanted to make sure that the local city council takes that into account as considering these measures and how they will impact students that we're trying to recruit to the university so that they can continue to contribute to our campus community that really needs these voices, and enables and empowers them to be as successful as possible throughout their time in this city, at this university. Thank you.
Thank you. May I just ask by a raise of hands, how many more people are planning on commenting on this? Because we're reaching the end of our 15-minute period. Okay. Could I ask that you, we'll go a little longer tonight, but try to keep it to about a minute so we can allow everybody to get a chance to speak. Go ahead.
Okay, hi, my name is Sadie Grant, and I'm also a resident of Provo, and I do oppose this paid for parking. As someone mentioned earlier, he was talking about as Provo and college students that we're pretty resilient, and if we're being forced to pay for parking, we're going to probably park farther away. And just a couple of weeks ago, I had an incident where I decided to drive to a friend who lived in Provo because it was late at night, and I didn't want to have to walk so far to her apartment, and I ended up still having to park a couple of blocks away. And at that time is when I'm followed by a man and chased into the apartment. And I just think that if we are going to pay for parking and people are going to be more resilient and park farther away, it really could raise the crime, because that was something that was really scary. And that's something that a lot of college students have to face as well, is being forced to park far away and being scared to walk home at night and all these things. And so that's just something to take into consideration for opposing for that.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Jillian Maxwell, and I'm also a resident of Provo, and I also oppose this this agreement. I have been a resident of Provo for a couple of years now, and I remember when I first drove into Provo, there's these signs that say "Welcome Home," and that was extremely comforting to me as a fresh college student. I was super nervous, and Provo has become my home. Provo is somewhere I love to be. But as stated earlier, now that we are no longer required as BYU students to live in Provo, I might find a new home, and that will take a lot of, there are many people that feel as I do, and that will take a lot of business and a lot of residents and a lot of people outside of Provo. We love it here. We don't want to leave, but with things such as this, we may have to resort to other options that are more financially suitable for our circumstances. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is JD Wright. I'm also a resident of Provo, a student of BYU, and I also oppose the parking. proposal. To me, it seems like hourly parking is a really great solution for a part of town that people visit hourly, but I park on the street sometimes. I have friends who park on the street all the time. My roommate isn't here tonight, but she parks on the street for days at a time because that is our permanent parking option. And so it feels unfair to make a student pay for 36 hours of hourly parking when it's their only permanent parking solution. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Savannah Fillerup. I'm a resident of Provo, here as well to oppose the parking proposal. As somebody who cannot get a parking permit because there are too many people in our apartment complex, to pay for street parking that doesn't even guarantee me a spot would be very difficult and frustrating for me. And that is not to mention those who are also underneath the poverty line who cannot pay for a parking pass within their budget. And so adding that financial burden would be a struggle for them, just to add to what everyone else has said. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Melanie Grohl. I'm also a resident of Provo, a student at BYU, and I'm also in opposition of the public parking proposal. I don't have any more proposed solutions, but I do support the solutions that create more space for the parking that would solve the problem instead of just paying for parking. And I'm just here as another presence and voice to support everything that's already been said. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Josh Blad, and I'm also a resident of Provo and a student at BYU. I agree with a lot of things that have been said already, and two additional things I wanted to add. One that was touched on briefly was just the fact that they were talking about time limits as part of the proposal. And at my apartment complex, they don't have enough spaces for everyone who has a parking pass. And so in parking on the street, we have to park overnight a lot of times, and sometimes park there for days, because if I had a spot in the underground garage, I would just leave it there. But I think that would be a really big financial burden to have to pay for like 36, 48 hours in a row. And especially, overnight, and that stress of having to move the car. Another issue I have is that the new standard of BYU housing that allows students to live off campus will bring more people that are driving to campus and will have to take those parking spots. And so they'll be taking up more of those spots available on the street to leave less for everybody else. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Suzanne Metler. I live in Springville, but I work for a management company, and I recognize many landlords that are here at this meeting. We have encouraged our tenants to come forward. I represent approximately 900 tenants, 150 properties, 16 HOAs, a trailer park. We manage a lot of different stuff. And it does appear that this parking would create a problem in a couple different ways. It's the fee structure for the tenants, and then combined with another matter that you've been talking about, which would be not allowing anyone to patrol our parking lots. We notice that 20-somethings often don't read all the signs that we have posted. And if we are not allowed to have parking enforcement on our properties, many of whom do have enough parking for them, we will find a lot of people parking on our properties. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, my name is Brendan Rowland. I've met with some of you in some meetings, and I appreciate that time. We've talked about this parking issue, but I'm with an apartment complex there and some properties, and we house some students. And I'm grateful for these students that have come and voiced their opinions. This does hurt the students. It also hurts businesses in the area who depend on parking to have people come into their businesses. We took away the parking, a lot of the parking on 800 North, which hurt two businesses a lot there. And they're not doing very well with that. I think of the parking program here, it deters people. I've talked to many students and asked if they would rather drive to Orem and go to a restaurant on a date or stay in Provo to go to a restaurant and have to pay, and they said they'd rather go to Orem. I worry about those businesses and the problems. We do want to keep a concentration of amenities and things for students to stay in Provo. And if we implement a parking program, I think it'll take away those opportunities for the students. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, his hand is up for Luke Sanchez, but I don't know if it's Luke Sanchez or the other woman that spoke for him.
Is the person signed in as Luke Sanchez? Is this a separate person that wants to comment?
Yes, this is Luke Sanchez. I am also a resident here in Provo. I would just like to bring up the point that the gentleman, and I apologize that I wasn't able to catch his name, before the public comment section was talking about the Parks and Rec award that Provo received. I think that Provo is a great place. Like one of the girls mentioned, it is our home, and part of Provo and part of the home that is Provo is all of the BYU students, all of the college students, all of the young people here that, by the way, love to do so many outdoor recreational activities. To do many of those things, cars are necessary. I agree there is a problem, but enforcing or forcing students to pay for overnight and street parking is not going to be the solution. I, like that gentleman, would like to invite all of you to be that gold standard. I hope you guys can uphold that gold standard and really make Provo the home for everybody. Thank you.
Thank you. Just 1 second. Councillor Ellsworth, did you have a question or I see your hand up?
Yeah, I have a comment that's somewhat related to this after the public comment period.
Okay, we'll get you afterwards then. And I just want to mention also, we really appreciate all this feedback. This item is actually not on the agenda tonight, but it's okay to discuss it during the public comment period. But I just want to make sure you all know there will be public hearings on this matter before any vote on it. So please go ahead.
My name's Lance Smith. I've been a Provo resident for 23 years. It seems like I was here about 10 years ago. One of my neighbors decided to have a permit program in our neighborhood. I live over in University Gardens, and she was complaining about the students parking in our neighborhood. And I told her it was akin to someone moving to Santa Barbara and complaining about the smell of salt in the air. So I love living in Provo. I have no problem with the students parking in front of my house. I'm not very good about putting the right, I have a pool business here for 20 years now. So I have different trucks and I always forget to put the right permit with the right truck. I also have a Volkswagen problem. And so I often get tickets every year for not putting the right pass. So anyhow, I guess I'll be back here in another 10 years when the next parking program is come up. So thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name's Alex Ruffner. I live at BYU Housing, and I don't have a whole lot of extra to say after what's been said, but I just want to say that I agree with everything that's been said. I don't think that you should charge for street parking, and I just wanted to be another person to say that. So thanks.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Justin Malloy. I'm a resident here in Provo. I also wanted to talk on the parking policy. My wife and I, we both work 2 jobs in order to pay for rent and everything associated with school. And so we both have a car. And so with the limited parking in our complex, we can only have 1 car there. And so I have to park a car on the street. And so having to pay a fine on top of everything else for having a car on the street, that'd be putting us back a little bit. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Jacob Udall. I'm also a resident here in Provo. I recognize that I don't know all the logistics and statistics of everything that's been going behind the proposal for paid parking, but as a student, I would recognize parking on the street and then suddenly have to pay for it. And I do recognize that there's a parking problem here in Provo, but I don't believe paid parking would be the solution that we need. And I do believe that there is a solution that we could find instead of paid parking. As has been stated, I believe we just need more parking spaces available and not necessarily charging for the limited parking that's already there, as that would only lead to people having to cough up more money because we need the cars that we have. Maybe freshmen could really use the great public transportation that we have, but lots of people have internships and work and jobs that we do need the cars that we have, not necessarily just for the, oh, thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Katie Bell. I'm also a resident here in Provo. I'm originally from Orem, and I'm a BYU student. When I heard about this policy, it made me really sad because I see all of the fantastic things that you as Provo City does. And it makes me sad to see that something like this would even be debated because it puts students at a really tough spot. And personally, for me, if this was put intact, then it would incentivize me to move back to Orem and away from Provo, which would be really sad because I really love Provo. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Hannah Wilhoit, and I am also a resident of Provo, and I go to BYU. I just wanted to reemphasize what has already been said today, as I do not think that this is helpful at all to the students that currently go to school and live down here, as it does continue to be a financial burden to us. That's just another thing that we don't need to worry about. The other thing that I do want to reemphasize that was mentioned earlier is the aspect of safety. I know for myself, being a young girl, that I've had to walk many blocks to get parking late at night, and I have felt very unsafe doing that. So I just think that that is something else to take into account as you do this, because if we do have to pay for parking, that will just incentivize us to go find parking in other places, and ultimately make us, I guess, feel a little bit more uncomfortable as we would have to walk home. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Sam Kieran. I live here in Provo, and I just want to reiterate what everyone said. I don't have too much different, but I feel like there would probably be a better solution to solving the parking issue other than having people to pay for it. So.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Hallie Collins. I'm also a resident of Provo and go to BYU, and I also oppose the paid parking because reiterating a lot of what everyone else has said, but the point of a lot of added stress on the students. And as sure a lot of us know, that students are already under a ton of stress from school, financially, with a job, and adding on having to pay for parking and just finding parking in general will just create more stress for the students, and I think will create greater problems for them. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Chad Heyer. I'm a student at BYU, and I oppose the parking fees. As a student, I feel that, of course, it'd be disadvantageous to me, but also to others, that students are already a vulnerable population and would be disproportionately affected by this parking fee. From my personal experience, I'm not able to park in my complex's parking because there's just not enough. So I have to have overnight parking. I currently work multiple jobs, and my second job that I work requires me to have a car, and it pays considerably better, in fact, twice more than my other job. And I would not have that opportunity or that income if I could not have my car or a place to park overnight. And I think this would be a similar situation for other students and would only encourage financial hardship among students, increasing rates of malnourishment and other problems. Thank you.
Thank you. Looks like we have, Okay.
Give me a chance. Hi, I'm Crystal Bartlett. I actually live in Orem, but I own property in Provo. So I am a landlord here. And I do worry about things that we're discouraging students. We're discouraging them from being here. And if there's an extra tax, really, I think of it as a tax, discouraging them and forcing them to move out. And I know with the new BYU arrangement, students are able to leave and they might leave. And then they have to travel back. I don't know how that looks. I really would love to see Provo zoning and BYU and Provo City work together to try to figure out a long-term solution rather than this parking meter situation. I don't think that's a long-term solution. Thank you.
Thank you. Looks like everyone who has wanted to speak has come to the microphone, so we will close public comment. This issue is not on the agenda tonight, so I won't comment on it tonight, but I would like to say I found it very refreshing to see so many of our young students and population come to express their opinions on an issue that is important to them. So thank you very much. Oh, yes, and Councillor Ellsworth, did you have a comment?
I did. I just wanted to express my appreciation to the students who participated in this public meeting. There's very, very few instances where students do participate in Provo City government, so it's very appreciated. And I hope that those students will continue to follow local issues. And I hope that those students will reach out to the city council. And I hope that those students will register to vote in Provo City so that they and the future students who come years from now are better represented.
Thank you. Well said. Councillor Hardy.
Thank you. I wanted to, I guess, echo what Councillor Ellsworth said. Very grateful for the turnout and for people caring enough about the community to come out and have their voices heard. You know, we love our BYU students. They're a big part of what makes Provo, and grateful that you came out. We're talking about doing a town hall where we would be able to have a good discussion on this. The committee had several focus groups, and we've met with students several times, but it's been difficult. We know your schedules. It's sometimes very difficult to get students to come in and talk. And so this has been great. I've taken a lot of notes. I think a town hall would be very helpful so we can talk through some of these ideas and concerns that you have. So I'd invite you to pay attention, and we'll announce that at some point in the future so we can talk about it before any decisions are made.
Thank you. All right. Thanks again for all who have participated tonight. We'll now move on to our first action agenda item, which is an implied motion on a resolution appointing individuals to various boards and commissions. And this item is to be presented by Mayor Michelle Kafusi.
I don't know if I should feel happy or sad that everyone's leaving. Hi, Nate, my cute little neighbor. I love them. So council members, I am recommending the following appointments to Provo City boards and commissions as indicated below and submit them herewith to council's advice and consent. For the Board of Adjustments, I am recommending Thomas Halliday be reappointed to the Board of Adjustments for another term ending June 30th, 2026. For the Planning Commission, I am recommending Robert Knutson be reappointed to the Planning Commission for another term ending June 30th, 2024. For the Transportation and Mobility Advisory Committee, I am recommending James Hamula be reappointed to the Transportation and Mobility Advisory Committee for another term ending June 30th, 2024. And I am recommending Laureen Urquiaga be reappointed to the Transportation and Mobility Advisory Committee for the duration of her service on the Planning Commission. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any questions or discussion on this item among councilors? Councilor Ellsworth.
My question is, how many of our boards and commissions have reached gender parity?
Yeah, so Counselor Shipley just pointed out to me, the library board is all females. And we welcome women. We want women. It's interesting. They submit a form to be appointed to a board or commission. And honestly, I am out beating the bushes. So if anybody knows anyone or would like to talk to them about joining one of our boards or commissions, send them online to fill out the form. We would love to have more gender equality. And sometimes I'm the lone woman. Actually, I am the lone woman in a lot of meetings. So the more, the merrier. And if there's anything you'd like to do and personally reach out and encourage people to jump online, we would love to have more to pull from. Our lists to pull from, and those that have asked and inquired or that have said, I want to get involved, and I immediately send them to this. It's sadly but true, very few tend to be women. So any help I can get would be greatly appreciated.
Thank you, Mayor. Any other comments or questions? Seeing none, I'll call for a vote on the implied motion to consent to these board and commission appointments presented by the mayor. All in favor? Councillor Fillmore?
Yes.
Councillor Ellsworth?
Sorry, I tried to raise my hand. Did we get some of the questions resolved about term limits?
Yes, we did. We determined that one individual had to serve 3 terms and so is not on the list for reappointment. The mayor's going to look to figure out what to do next.
Okay, thank you.
And I'll just speak to that. It's a little bit tricky because some of these boards and commissions, they say they have to have, they have to be an engineer, they have to live in Provo, there's some requirements that are a little tricky to fill some of these positions. And that one in particular is one of those that's a little tricky, but we caught it and we have taken it off and plan on the 16th, we're going to have a bunch more to put on boards and commissions. We're really trying to get these filled, not only the past expired, but those that are going to expire after the first of the year. We're for the first time going to try and get ahead of this.
So your vote on this item, Councillor Ellsworth?
Yes.
All right, that motion passes unanimously, and we would like to again express our thanks and appreciation to these individuals who volunteer their time to serve in these various capacities.
May I clarify? I just received a text that indicated that apparently the individual was pulled off. It wasn't clear whether he was still eligible or not, so they're working that out.
Okay, I couldn't quite understand that, Mr. Steckenkamp. Sorry.
Marbles. I just got a text from Brian Jones. He indicated that the individual that we pulled off, thinking that he was term limited, may or may not be. They're trying to work that out.
They're trying to resolve that. Okay, thank you very much. We'll now move on to item number 2, which is our last item of business for tonight, which is an implied motion on an ordinance on towing fees. And this item is to be presented by Cliff Strachan, Council Executive Director.
Councilors, thank you for the opportunity. We've worked on this at council direction and after request from a tow company operator to take a look at our rates that hadn't changed since January of 2014. The council recommendation was to set it at 80% of the amount allowed under state law. And so the language change you see on the screen in front of you, it represents that. The rates, the current rates would be about, it would be $60 for booting and would be $194 for a tow admin fee and first day of storage. Any questions?
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Strachan? All right, this item is open for public comment.
My name is Tim Metler. I'm a resident of Springville, but I own Legend Real Estate and my family owns property here in Provo. Am I permitted to speak with regards to towing and booting services? Because I know there's been discussion regarding that in the work sessions. Is that okay?
Yes, you have 2 minutes to.
2 minutes? Okay. So we own Foxwood Properties. It's on the corner of 880 North and University Avenue. And when we built that, we built it with 100% parking capacity for all the tenants who are there. Plus, I believe we have 10% visitor parking there. And quite frequently, I think my experience years ago as a BYU student is probably reflective of the attitude regarding parking. And that was, I was driving my parents' vehicle at the time, and I parked several times at BYU and got a parking ticket and didn't pay it. And then one day my vehicle wasn't there when I came out from class. And my dad said, well, go figure out where it's at. And I went up to the parking center and it had been towed and I paid and I didn't ever do that again. And I think this is reflective of the students. And I know it hits them hard in the budget as far as, the towing fees, and the students are a significant population there. But when they come to we have several violations on our property where people will pull in and they'll just pull into an assigned parking stall. They don't care whose stall it is, and they just stay there. They don't care until they get booted or towed, and then all of a sudden it's a big deal. We do have visitor parking there. We get people pulling in from across the street that are there visiting another complex. We have kids pulling in there, and because of our proximity to BYU, they walk off to BYU, and we've had to monitor that. So I think that we need to protect the landlord's rights to protect that parking so that it protects the rights of the tenants that are on that property there. Sometimes we've had issues, and I work with Clint over at UPE to mediate a situation. And there's been times where he's released the fee or the tow, and we work through that. So I just encourage that we continue to work along those lines. Thanks.
Thank you.
My name's Braden McKee. I'm a student at BYU, but me and my wife are hopefully buying a house on 300 South. So hopefully we'll be tax paying people in a year. But I just want to oppose raising the fee. I get it's going to go up eventually, like everything goes up. But I just don't see, whenever you park on the street and you get a ticket from Provo Parking, they put a sticker on your car and you pay it or whatever, but they get to put boots on your car anywhere you go. And I just feel like the practice of driving around half empty parking lots, putting boots on people's car isn't that beneficial to everyone or whatever. But I don't know. Yeah, I don't like it, but it's fine. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi there. My name is Isaac Lamro. I currently reside in Provo. So about a month ago, I got towed. And you're probably thinking, okay, this knucklehead got towed, so what? I got towed in a place where it was right next to a visitor lot. It had no signage saying that it wasn't my friend's visitor lot where I thought I was parking. And it had no signage saying this is someone else's lot. You're going to get towed. And I got charged to about $260. I pay for myself to go to school. I do not have much financial support, and I did not have the money to pay. And I was very thankful that I had some friends come through to do that for me. But increasing towing costs for students will be super detrimental to us. I think that this is, it's a really complicated issue. You have students parking where they shouldn't be parking. But increasing pay, I do not think is a solution. I think a viable solution is more signage, especially on public and private property lots, specifically saying if you can park there, whether it's visiting, what are the restrictions? I think that'd be super helpful for all of us. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Suzanne Metler. I'm co-owner of Legend Real Estate. Like I said, we have an awful lot of properties around Provo. We have 16 HOAs. I don't know how many actual complexes we have, multiple complexes. in a lot of different areas. What we have found with our students is that we do not have rules in place, they violate them, as my husband testified that he did. And then for us, we clearly disclose on all of our properties, there are signs on every entrance. We have assigned parking for a lot of places. They are clearly marked. We have assigned parking in certain places, and we've had people totally and completely ignore that and violate it. They are even told in their contracts when they sign them that they need to have parking permits before they sign up, they are any of our properties. We have worked with the towing companies to make sure that we suspend parking during the time when most people are likely to not know that they need a parking, at the beginning of their tenancy and also at the end when they're moving. So we do everything we can. We've never had a problem with the parking company. Every once in a while, there is an issue, and if it is clearly our fault, then we will pay for the tow or they will release it. We view towing enforcement as being the way that we can protect our tenants who are obeying the rules, their right to parking. And it would really hurt us if we were not able to do that. And it just makes it difficult when they cannot protect that right. Because the kids, quite frankly, I understand it's a financial hardship, but we have done everything we can in their contracts and with all our communications and with signage to make sure that on our properties, they know that they're violating that. And they will offer a temporary permit if they go in and they haven't been able to come into us as well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Michael Lamont. I'm the president and founder of University Parking Enforcement. We're the largest parking enforcement company in the county. We service over 700 HOA communities, apartment complexes since 2001 here in Provo.
One moment, Mr. Lamont, since you were the one that brought this request, could we give him 5 minutes, please, if you would like that much?
Yeah, I would appreciate it.
Yeah.
Thank you. It's been about 8 years since I've been here in front of the council, which is probably a good thing for you guys. It's a good thing for me too. But private property owners continue to have a desperate need for private property parking enforcement here in Provo. They need to have a space for their residents to come home. Most of them choose booting as the method because it's a lot cheaper for students. It's usually accomplished through either call-in parking enforcement or patrol parking enforcement. Patrol services continues to be the most demanded parking enforcement. Property owners don't have the time, the resources. They don't want to risk being out at all hours of the night, walking through their properties, have their employees out all night long that aren't trained to deal with the kind of conflict and assault and stuff that we deal with on a nightly basis. Provo City implements some of the same methods of patrol parking enforcement and with their police department because it's the most effective way to enforce. I think there's been a lot of miscommunication and misconceptions around patrol parking enforcement. Property owners, like you've seen, are extremely involved with the parking enforcement process. They are the ones that dictate the parking rules to us. They inform their residents, they post regulatory signs. They contract with us, very detailed, what they want enforced and what they don't want enforced. And in order for us to continue operating a successful business for the last 20 years, we follow those contracts precisely. If I wouldn't have a job if I was out there booting and towing. I know that was one of the concerns brought up in the work meeting. Property owners know what's going on their property. They hear the complaints. I wouldn't have a job if I was just some rogue person out in the parking lot booting and towing anything in any violation that I made up. This is all contracted work from the property owner, from the management company. Every enforcement action is meticulously documented. We videotape every single violation. Property owners have access to this. You guys have access to this. The police department has access to it. If there's a complaint that comes into your office and they're claiming something, call me on my cell phone. I'll send you over the video of the enforcement and it can be backed up. It's not something that we're trying to hide. It's completely transparent. I did have a couple questions though on, I appreciate you guys looking over this. As you know, we have not been able to raise our rates since 2012. The law was passed in 2014, but Mayor Curtis was basing all of the fees on what my company had been charging for 2 years already. So since 2012, we haven't been able to raise the boot fee from $60. I understand that you guys are proposing to raise it to 80% of the state max, which is $75, which it was changed to $75 in 2014. So we're still at the same place. Even if you do make that change, we're still at the same place we have been for 10 years. And I'm sure you guys can understand that in the last 10 years, a lot has changed and increased. And I still need to be able to run a business that provides a service to all of the private property owners around here. So I would really appreciate consideration to move the booting prices up to a more appropriate fee that reflects at least inflation. So that's what I've got. I do have some questions on as far as what for the towing fees also, is it 80% of the tow fee, the administration fee, the fuel surcharge, and the storage fee, the initial storage fee? Is that how you guys are calculating the 80%, or?
Can you answer that, Mr. Strachan or Mr. Jones?
Yeah, unless I missed something, but my understanding it is the towing fee, the administration fee, and the first day storage fee.
So it's 80% of whatever that total
Of that is. And let me clarify, and I probably gave it, was too brief when I presented earlier because we had discussed it earlier today. But this particular fee is really only for the non-consent towing that's done. You guys still get to charge the regular fees you do that the state provides for your patrol towing. This is the non-consent patrol towing. So if you just show up and you don't have a property owner's permission to pick up a car that's, say, parked across the driveway, that's what this would apply, right? But the regular contracted towing you have with the landlords and stuff, you charge the regular rate for that.
So if a property owner contracts with us to do parking enforcement patrol,
as long as you follow, my understanding, as long as you follow the state code and the city code on it, that requires signage, a contract with certain provisions that are laid out, then you get to charge the regular rate. This one particular element was meant to try and reduce the can't think of the word, but the number of Brian's correcting me.
Mr. Jones is very familiar with this. Maybe we should have him.
Yeah, let's bring him on.
Let's bring him on to clarify this. Mr. Jones.
Hang on a second. I probably have to promote him here.
I'm not even seeing him on the list here.
that was my understanding, that it was anything that a parking enforcement company patrolled for. So if we were contracted to go patrol a property, anything under the patrol realm is governed by this 80%, which is 90% of our business. You know, no
Right.
property owner wants to go walk their property at 2 a.m.
Right. Well, Brian's going to help correct anything I've missed. I know that the towing requirements are very complicated, and it was my understanding that this rate was affecting kind of a smaller proportion of your business, but
yeah,
Brian will clarify. He's here now.
Okay.
Okay, I'm here now. Sorry. I think the confusion was the mention of the word contract. So just to clarify, this is specifically about contract towing. So what this doesn't apply to is when the property owner calls you and says, there's a car on my lot right now that I want you to come get it. Then you can charge whatever the state statute allows for those. If you are patrolling the lot because you have a contract with the property owner, then these restrictions apply.
Right. That was my understanding too. And I think the problem that I definitely have with this is that that's 90% of our business is contract parking enforcement, because that's what the property owner wants us to go out and check for permits at midnight after visitors have to be gone, and no property owner is going to go out and do that. And so if you're still limiting us at $60, what we were charging 10 years ago, it's getting impossible to provide that service to a property because we can't charge what a reasonable rate is.
Well, and the only response I'd have to that, Mr. Lamont, is that the state has only raised the maximum $2.50 in that same time period.
They're at $75 right now. We're still
right,
at 60.
but they were at $72.50 when this ordinance was originally passed. So the percentage is almost the same as far as what the percentage of the state maximum is.
So when this was presented in the work meeting and it was said that we could charge $70 for a boot, where did that calculation come from?
Well, so let me back up and just explain what I just said. I don't know anything about a $70. In 2014, when this was passed, the state maximum was 50. The state code provision that now says $75 didn't exist. And the state maximum for boots was 50% of a tow. And at that point in time, tows were $143 just for the tow service fee. So the maximum boot was $72.50. So in 2014, the state maximum was $72.50 and the Provo maximum was $60. Now, if this ordinance were to pass, the state maximum would be $75 and the Provo maximum would still be $60, which is, you're dropping down from something like 82% to 80%.
Yeah, but do we not feel like it's unreasonable to keep a company at the same rate for 10 years?
Well, the point that I was making is that the state has practically kept you at the same rate for 10 years because the state maximum...
We've never been able to charge that rate though.
Well, you have for non-contract, non-patrol tows and outside of Provo City. But I'm just saying that there's not a big difference between what Provo City is proposing to do here and what the state has already done outside of Provo with regard to how much boot fees have gone up in 10 years. That's my only point.
Okay. Yeah, but at $75, I could at least give my drivers a raise in the last 10 years and help them pay for gas and help with vehicle maintenance and pay my insurance bills and all of that. I mean, it would make a little difference to you, would make a huge difference to us in being able to operate our business.
Do any counselors have questions for Mr. Lamont before we?
Mr. Fillmore's hands up.
Pardon?
Mr. Fillmore's hands up.
Counselor Fillmore. You're muted.
I still have not heard a definitive answer to the question the gentleman raised, whether the 80% applies to these additional charges above and beyond the tow fee.
Yes, it does. It specifically spells out in the ordinance that the 80% applies to the towing service fee, the administrative fee, and the first day of storage. However, of the ones that he listed, it does not apply to the fuel surcharge.
So that's the only thing it doesn't apply to.
Correct. And subsequent days of storage after the first day.
Okay.
Any other questions for Mr. Lamont? Mr. Harding.
So this was worked out, 7-8 years ago. And my understanding, I wasn't there at the time, but my understanding was these were provisions that were put in place to discourage patrol enforcement and encourage the call-in method for parking and enforcement. I believe one of the other provisions in here was a requirement that contracts allow the property manager to call in and request or to waive the fees for instances when they felt like the tow was inappropriate. I can't remember if it was this year or last year, but there was some comments about that tow companies had worked around that provision, or I mean, it's legal, but it was getting around the intent by then requiring the property manager to pay the fees if they ever waived it. Have you heard of that in the industry? Is that something your company does?
You know, I think with the amount of regulation that's come over the parking enforcement companies, it's changed the industry a little bit. But in the 20 years that I've been in business, my loyalty is to my client, you know, and we have clients and customers. The clients are the property owners and managers. The customers are the people that get towed. Now, the customers don't really love us, but I try to maintain a relationship with my clients to where if they have a problem with something that's happened, or they've made a mistake within the office, or we made a mistake, if it's not the person who got towed's mistake, then we take care of it for them. And that has always been prior to that's why Mayor Curtis put that in there, was because he based the ordinance mostly off my business model. And so where it hurts now is that we're still under the same fees as we were 10 years ago when he based it off my business model. And obviously it doesn't still function in 2021 that way. But yeah, always and forever have my clients been able to call me up and say, hey, there's a problem with this. And some clients will take responsibility for it and say, hey, this is totally my mistake. I'm going to take care of this. And some will ask us to take care of it. And either way, it gets taken care of.
So you haven't modified contracts because the contracts have to have it in that the provision that the property managers can waive the fees.
I believe our contract addendum reads identical to what the city ordinance is, line for line. And every one of my patrol clients signs the addendum to the contract that says exactly what the city ordinance says.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Shipley. So, and maybe this isn't a question as much as it is just a comment. If you're able to line item different fees and we're not all inclusive with those different fees, you're just going to make up for the difference in total cost by, for example, in this case, not having the fuel surcharge, part of the 80% cap. That's where you make up a difference in whatever you want to charge for the tow. So there is some, I guess I'm just stating a comment. There is some, if we're not going to say the total tow can only be X percentage of the state rate, then the ordinance doesn't work, because if I'm a towing company, if I'm an operator like you, I'm going to make up, line item where I can make up, the difference in what I think I should be able to charge. And so I don't think the ordinance as it stands is workable at this point. We need to think through either making a flat fee or making it all inclusive with all the different line items that you're charging. And then I don't mind looking at the boot fee. This is something we were so focused on making sure that we could give you an inflation adjustment on the tow fee.
And I appreciate that.
That's okay. I think we missed the mark, on considering what the boot fee is and what that should look like. Frankly, the discussion probably should be a little bit about, do we prefer that somebody get a boot over a tow, right? And if we're going to disincentivize, somebody to do boots because they're not as cost effective as just trying to tow every single person that they come across, then maybe we're incentivizing the wrong thing here. So my first point is, I think the ordinance is a little bit off, because if we're not including all the line items, I think as an operator, we just add the extra cost wherever, the line item is that's not regulated by this ordinance. And then the second thing is, I think we need to relook at the boot.
And just as a comment, on private property impounds right now, we don't charge a fuel surcharge, even though we can charge 10% right now. Up until to Brian's point, back in 2014, we were charging $60. The total was $72.50 that we could charge. We regulated ourselves before all this regulation came in. And now all the regulation comes in, and we're trying to make up the difference to be able to continue to operate under all the different cities' guidelines, and Vineyards followed suit with Provo's ordinance. And so, we would like to find a way that we can operate and still not charge the full fees that the state allows, but charge a appropriate and reasonable fee. So,
Councilor Shipley, I'd just like to, and Mike, correct me if I'm wrong, but the reason we didn't include this fuel surcharge is because state law governs when it can be charged and how much can be charged based on fuel charges at the time. Isn't that right?
Yeah. So when it gets above 325, they have a certain website that you can go to. When it gets above 325, then you can charge a 5% fuel surcharge. And then every 25 cents above that, you can charge another 5%. So we're at 10% right now and the only thing that we charge on right now are like state impounds and accidents that we do for the city.
But it's capped at exactly what the state allows. There's not flexibility for you to make up okay. Good to know. Thank you, Mr. Jones.
Right. And so we made the decision back in 2014 not to include that one because that one directly correlates to fuel prices and is capped by the state. So that seemed like a direct cost that we didn't include. So I didn't include it again here because I didn't make any changes in this ordinance to what's included. What's included is exactly what was included before.
Thank you.
Mr. Fillmore, did you have a question? You're muted.
Yes, I did, Chair Sewell. I'd like to ask this gentleman, how often does it happen that a landlord requests you to waive your fee?
Every day.
Because Mr. Chair Sewell, that just seems really inappropriate. That this gentleman has a contract service. He's rendering a service that's needed. He's rendering a service that's requested. It's under contract. It just doesn't seem fair to me that he has to eat what may well be the mistake of the landlord. Seems like the landlord ought to pick that up or at least split it. Given these inflationary times, I think it's distinctly unfair to hold this business down to what it could charge many years ago. As a business owner, I'm very sensitive to inflation, and so is this gentleman, rightly so. Maybe we need to go to a flat fee for a tow and find a way to incentivize that over towing. But as it is now, I'm not very comfortable at all with the ordinance proposed.
Mr. Jones, did you have a comment on that?
Well, I was just going to say, and I don't know the answer to this, so I think it's a great point that Mr. Fillmore, that Councilor Fillmore raises as far as a question, but I'd love to know the follow-up question to that, which is why do the owners ask you to waive those fees? Because the intent of that provision was to allow owners to request the tow companies to waive the fees when they felt like the tow companies had actually inappropriately towed the vehicle.
Do you want me to answer that? So I don't quite know how to answer that other than we get, I have 700 clients and they all have different reasons for why they ask. A resident comes in and says they can't pay for it. And so they call us and ask us to release it for free. A million different reasons like that. It's very, very rare that they call and say, hey, you did something wrong, release this for free right now, or we're going to find a different company. That's the alternative in a free economy. They have other options they can go to. None of my contracts are binding. Any of my clients can walk at any point. And we continue to be the leader in parking enforcement because, we work out those situations with them. But it's a huge frustration in our business when we're asked to work for free, and it happens every single day. But it's typically they'll get a complaint about us, and we'll send them over the video of what the enforcement is, and then they'll back us on based on the documentation we have. And like I said, if you guys as a city get a complaint and say, hey, when Mayor Curtis asked for all these complaints, he got 5 million complaints, and everyone that we could validate that wasn't anonymous, I sent him over the videos to him, and they did not match up with what their description of what happened was. And I'm sure you'd get the same thing if you said, give me all the complaints you can have on the police department or on parking enforcement in the city. It's a topic that people like to complain about, and rightly so. But we do document everything for that purpose.
Thanks for answering that, Mike. Ms. Lamont, that's useful to know, because I guess there's a whole separate policy discussion for the council to have about whether that's appropriate or not. But what it calls to mind for me is that it may be appropriate to do some clarification, because it sounds like there may be things happening that are beyond what the original intent of the legislation was.
And I don't have a problem with that in there, because my clients do that anyway, and they always have. So it's not a big deal for me to have it in there, but I appreciate that.
We need to conclude with public comment here. Are there any other questions for Mr. Lamont before we do that? Mr. Strachan?
Mr. Lamont, it's my understanding that the state regulates pretty much every charge that you can make, right? In terms of, so not only fuel surcharges, but virtually everything. Okay.
On a quick side note, were you guys able to look at the signage, the new state signage laws as compared to what's in Provo City ordinance?
We talked about it. Brian should answer that one for you.
Yeah, I just say we're aware of the state law. We hadn't done an analysis about conflicts between the two. If you have information you'd like to send us about specific conflicts that you've noticed, we're undertaking that, but hadn't done it as of yet.
Okay. The signage just looks completely different from what is outlined in Provo City. And I'll just email you a link to what the new state signage laws are and everything, so you can look through it.
That'd be great.
Okay. Sounds good.
The one thing I would point out, and this is a be careful what you wish for kind of situation, I would point out to the council that while Mr. Lamont is not excited perhaps about the solution that is proposed that's in front of you tonight, if you reject it, then he's stuck with what's currently in the code until you do something else. Just to think that through. I mean, passing what's in front of you would at least allow him to charge more for towing while you think about other options, but rejecting it means he's still limited to what the current limit is.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Lamont. If we think of any more questions for you, we'll call you back up later.
Thank you.
So let's move on. If there's any others who would like to make public comment.
Hello, my name is Taylor McKee. I'm both a Provo citizen, I'm a resident, and I'm a BYU student. As a civilian, parking, like we've been talking about all evening, is of interest to me, the booting, the towing, all of it. I'm also a civil engineering student at BYU, and city planning and urban development is also of interest to me, for further note. I will say that I read all the documents online that I could find. I read the staff report, which explained that the cap in 2013 was placed to prevent predatory towing by Mayor Curtis, and a quick Google search on university parking enforcement. They're very often accused of being a predatory towing company. So just that is one place, for one reason why me, as well as many other BYU college students, would be interested in not increasing this rate for booting and towing. I understand many of my peers and colleagues left, but I don't think they were aware of this other agenda item. I'm sure many of them would have stayed if they were aware. I only learned of it today that we were going to be talking, so my husband and I decided we had enough interest that we wanted to come speak. I will say I wanted to have some sympathy for Mr. Lamont and for all these landlords. I understand from their business point of view, increasing these rates might disincentivize breaking these rules for parking. It might bring Mr. Lamont more income for his business. But standing on the side of the population at large and the majority population of Provo, which is
college students and many people under the poverty line. Fees for booting and towing are an extra, just too much for us, as well as being the limited resource of parking, the side effect and the negative consequences, getting our cars booted and towed. And so it's just mirroring this larger problem that we have with limited resources of parking. And so I feel that if there is supposed to be some kind of change to these fees for parking, I would ask that they reflect both the affluence of the majority population of Provo, which is very low, and also the rate at which the state wants to increase these prices. And so it seems that $2.50 over the last 10 years doesn't seem like there is really a necessary change from Mr. Lamont's side. And so that was just some of the points that I wanted to bring today. So I thank you for your time. And I ask that you consider more of the population than just business owners and landlords. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any other public comments on this item? Seeing none, we'll close public comment and bring this back to the council for discussion. And if I might just, go ahead, Mr. Strachan.
Let you finish your comment, then I wanted to add something.
Okay, so it seems like several things have come up here. There's, I just want to kind of frame what's before us tonight. I think the main question for tonight is just whether we want to do the inflation adjustment by indexing to the state maximum. The percentage that we've talked about would accomplish that for the tow, apparently not quite for the boot. So that could be something that we either adjust or bring back later. There's also the issue of apparent inconsistency in our signage requirements and the state. Brian's team will look into that and bring that back separately. So my hope is if there are counselors that would like to go beyond what's proposed tonight in increasing the rate more, that maybe we could consider that as a separate item. If there's counselors that want to do further restrictions than what's in the current code, I would hope that that could be brought back as a separate item. So mainly what we're hoping for tonight is a discussion and an up or down vote on whether we want to do the inflation adjustment. So, Mr. Strachan.
Yeah, I kind of want to just summarize what I thought were your options. And I think between you and Brian, you've covered most of them. I would say that if I think Provo, when it created this, if not, I believe Provo became one of the few places in the state that have a lower rate than what the state sets at. As I looked around, I didn't survey everywhere, but it seemed like some of the places I talked to that didn't have any, they just charged what the state maximum is. The difference in this rate, it worked out that dropping from about 82, 83% on the booting kept to 80%, kept us at the $60. Moving from 82%, the rate that was there to the 80%, which we were kind of arbitrary about it. But when you talk about where that is on the towing fees that we outlined there, the portions that are covered, you're talking about a jump from $175 to $194. So and 40 cents. So we're up $19.40 over where we were on the towing. Keep in mind that while the booting, if you go from 80% to 100% of the booting, you're up to the $75. But if you come from if you go from 80% to 100% on the towing, you're going to jump from 175 to 194 to $242 for a towing first day storage and an admin fee based on those numbers. So as we see it from a staff perspective, we brought this to you because Mr. Lamont had asked for you to, as a council, to consider an increase. And when we came to you, when we discussed it at a couple of work meetings, the idea was to go to a percentage rather than a rate, so you didn't have to keep adjusting it year after year, just peg it to the state rate. And so that's kind of where we're at. And at some point, if you go above 80%, you may as well start asking yourself, should you just go back to the 100%? The other thing I don't know that we track, and I don't know, I've never talked to Wayne about it or anybody in customer service. There was a time where it seemed like predatory, what they call predatory towing, seemed to be something that was making the news. It was pretty common. I don't know that we get that many complaints anymore. So either it's working or as Mr. Lamont suggested, maybe it was an overblown problem to begin with, but I don't know. I don't know what the answer is, but I do think you have a chance to make an up and down vote. I don't know if it matters if you do it tonight or at the next meeting or the meeting after that. We put a go to the bottom of it. I can't think of the word for it, but start date on it from January 15th. And that was just, we pulled that one out of the air. That was the same date that we had in 2014.
That's a good point, Cliff. I forgot about the implementation date. So that probably refutes my earlier point about tonight mattering that much.
Okay. All right, Mr. Henley.
Yeah, I want to thank Mr. Lamont. I want to confirm something that he said from my own personal experience. I don't know if you'll remember that I had a towing issue or a boot issue a long time ago, and you were very professional. You were very good at communicating with me. I was frustrated, as probably every one of your customers, as you alluded to, is you videotaped everything. So I think I just want to confirm your account of your business practices in that regard. I think I was very satisfied with the professionalism that with which you handled that situation. So I don't know if I assume that's characteristic of how you interact with others. So I appreciated that very much. I think what I'm struggling with here isn't so much, maybe it's just always been this struggle of trying to do what's fair for a business and do what's fair for a student population. I'm a little frustrated that the landlords that encouraged students to come out tonight didn't appear to have mentioned to them that we were going to be discussing this particular issue, which is a much more heavy price tag, I think, on their and more of a serious impact on their wallet than a parking program might, and especially if the parking program were able to reduce some of the violations, and that seemed to me to be something that I'm really struggling with. So even though none of the students addressed that, except for those who stuck around, thank you. I'm not because I know that when I've talked to students, I do hear about this issue. So I would much prefer to hear more from them on this particular issue than we heard tonight, but hearing what their concerns are about finances and so on, it does seem counterintuitive to me to sort of jump at the chance to hike fees that would impact their wallets without them having a chance to speak up for themselves or to consider that in that way. So that's my struggle right now. I'm not sure that leads me to an answer as to how to address this particular problem, because it does seem to me that from the sound of it, the boot is more of the common practice than the towing. So it does seem to me that unless and until we address that, we're not really addressing the root of the issue. But because we're talking about an impact of pretty significant of pretty significant financial impact on the students, I'm hesitating to support an adjustment. Anyway, that's where I'm at. I'm struggling with it.
Mr. Harding.
Yeah, I'd like to, if we're going to be making changes to kind of a balance that was struck years ago, I think it behooves us to gain a little more information so we can be making fully informed decisions. I would love to understand this more from the client's perspective, if that's what we're talking about, from the property managers. We did hear from, looks like they've left, but look, we did hear from one earlier, but I'd love to kind of try to understand things from their perspective and their experience. I think would be helpful to know. So as far as the discussion on what's before us, I feel like this is something that I could support if there's additional adjustments, and I definitely think we should spend more time really understanding the ramifications of our decisions.
Any other comments? Counselor Ellsworth and then Fillmore.
Yeah, I appreciate that the other counselors have talked about taking more time to study this and looking at this from a broader scope, or maybe with the 360-degree perspective. It is uncomfortable to me to consider increasing the amount for a tow at the same time we're considering charging for on-street parking, and those are affecting a certain population of our city more than other populations. So I do think we should be careful and probably consider different timelines or different mechanisms for accomplishing these objectives.
Thank you. Counselor Fillmore. You're muted.
I would just add my 2 cents to the effect that I think this needs a little more time. I can see, in our discussion, there are 4 or 5 things that merit some further understanding and tweaking to the ordinance. We don't lose anything if it's not going to be effective until the new year anyway.
Thank you. Any other comments? Mr. Hoban.
Let's see. I've been booted twice and towed once in Provo. Anybody got that beat on the council? Supporting your business. I don't know. I guess I'm kind of heartless, but I learned my lesson at least by the 3rd time. And I just kind of feel like these property owners, what happens is you have all these apartment complexes next to each other. And if they don't allow patrol enforcement, then everybody from the other complexes or visitors are just going to park in their lot. So everybody has to do it. At least that's how I view it. And I don't know. I think they want to make sure that their students can park in their parking lot, or the business wants to make sure that, think about Brick Oven, if they didn't allow patrol booting or whatever, or patrol enforcement, I don't know. It's just kind of a organized civil society that, we got to have some enforcement of things like this. So I don't know. I don't want to be heartless to the students. But it is just kind of a reality. You got to pay attention to the signs, and, or do what I do, which is deflate my tire and remove the boot, which is what I did once and got busted because everything's recorded. Learned that lesson the hard way too. That was the first time I met Provo City PD.
That's got to be the best confession on the day.
Yeah. But I will say I learned my lesson. I was a dumb college student, just like all the rest were. Okay. And I was poor. But just the reality is that they've got a business that is in demand by property owners, retail, and I think it's okay, to have a little bit of an inflation increase, but I don't know. I'm okay. Obviously people want to study it more, and I'm okay with that. See how it's going to impact people, but I guess I'm just sympathetic to their business as well. So.
Councilor Shipley.
So I've mentioned, I think we need to look at the boot issue. Obviously, we got to look at the signage issue, but I think tonight we could support an inflation piece of the puzzle. For me, I think, and I've spoken offline with some other counselors about this. I think we have to be careful what we wish for. If we regulate a cap on the tow price, I think what in essence we're doing is saying to competition for businesses that operate here, like stay out of Provo. And we're inadvertently, I think, making it less competitive in Provo actually for a service that needs to be competitive, that should have options. These clients should have options, and right now they might not feel like they have options because of the price that's artificially put lower than where the market is. And so so because of that concern that I have, I think we need to do something from an inflationary standpoint, but then also, and Chair Sewell's alluded to this, I think if we keep it artificially at some arbitrary number for too long, I think at some point we run the risk of just blowing the whole thing up, having the state come and say, no, you just got to comply with what we say. So I think for those two reasons, I'd like this industry to be a little bit more competitive in Provo. No offense to the job you guys are doing, but I think it's just better for business to have, other businesses feel like they can operate here too. And I think when we keep it too artificially low, I think we're basically saying like, we want less competition in Provo, and that doesn't seem intuitive. It doesn't seem like a good customer service model, to have less competition. So I'd be supportive of an inflationary adjustment, and then to look at the boot and the signage issue as well.
My comment is, as an elected official and as a business owner myself, I feel like this is the absolute minimum that we could do, and that I could walk out of here and look another business owner in the eye and feel like we're even close to being fair. I'm happy to take another look, at the boot piece potentially later if we haven't done enough there. But I hope that we would at least pass what's before us tonight. So that's kind of where I'm at on that. Any other comments?
I should say, I don't know if Brick Oven does patrol enforcement. So I don't want Brick Oven calling me and being like, what? I'm just meant retail businesses in certain areas that have a lot of, anyways.
All right, Mr. Hanley.
I just feel like I need to explain that I could vote for this, but I don't think I will tonight, only because I really do feel like I would have preferred to have at least given students a chance to address this in particular. I represent the vast majority of the students in my district, and so I feel some responsibility to have done a better job of getting more feedback from them, which if this moves forward, which it sounds like it will in terms of other dimensions of it, I will make sure I can get.
Thank you. Not seeing any other comments, I'll call for a vote. All in favor? Councillor Fillmore?
What was the count? I didn't hear that.
Pardon?
What was the count of the vote for those on the dais?
Here in the chamber, we have 3 in favor and 2 opposed.
You actually haven't asked if they're opposed or if they're abstaining yet.
Oh, that's correct.
So it might be helpful just to do a roll call vote
Okay.
from left to right or online to.
We'll go left to right. Councillor Harding?
No.
Councillor Shipley?
Yes.
Councillor Sewell is in favor. Councillor Hanley?
No.
Councillor Hoban?
Yes.
Councillor Fillmore?
Okay. I will reluctantly vote yes, because I think the adjustment is a good thing. But I'm doing so on the assumption that we're going to address these residual issues here in the very near future to fine tune this, and also give the students a chance to weigh in.
Thank you. Councillor Ellsworth?
No.
All right, that ordinance passes 4-3. And unless there is any objection, we will adjourn for the night. Thank you.